to Homecoming 2020. I'm Director of Athletics, Mark LaBarbera, and I am thrilled to welcome you to what is the first event of this Homecoming week, the Athletics Coaches Roundtable, or the Athletics Coaches Town Hall meeting. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are thrilled today to have with us, starting over here on my left, Assistant Volleyball Coach Nick Polite, Head Football Coach Landon Fox, Head Men's Basketball Coach Matt Lottich, and Head Women's Basketball Coach Mary Evans. And I introduced them all. You probably know who they are, but you may not recognize all of us with the masks on. So we just wanted to make sure you knew who was here. It's an interesting time for us here in the athletics department at Valparaiso. We are thrilled that this year, again, we have about 390 student athletes. That includes 135 members of the freshman class, and we are very excited to have all of them back, all of them participating in a meaningful way in their sports and representing all of you and representing the brown and gold. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a little roundtable discussion, and we're going to give you a little sense of what it's like to coach during COVID. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have each one of the coaches give you a little sense of what the spring and summer was like with their limited access to our student athletes. So for this part of the conversation, we're going to start over here on my far right with Coach Evans, and have her give you a little glimpse into what the spring and summer were like for women's basketball. Coach Evans?
Thank you. I think for us, what we tried to use the spring and the summer for was just to try to make sure that we were maintaining a level of connectivity amongst our team. It's hard to really do any type of skill instruction. Our kids all had very limited access to facilities. Some lived in very hard-hit areas and were unable to go to open gyms or see trainers. So each kid's physical activities were very different, and we tried to kind of challenge them individually to get better at something over the course of the spring and summer, whether that was being able to get in the gym and get better with a basketball skill. If not, maybe read a book, improve the mental side of things. So we just challenged them that at the end of the COVID quarantine to come out of it a little bit better in some aspect of their lives. The other thing we tried to do was different activities to maintain team cohesion. So I know we had a weekly book club. The girls got together and created a couple activities that they did amongst themselves to try to maintain the culture that we're used to having. And I think for me, that was the hardest part, is the lack of kind of the organic conversations that come about from just being in the office and kids popping by or hanging out in the team room, or one-on-one shooting sessions where you have these conversations with these young people, and you learn a lot about them, and those are just hard to go about through a Zoom or a FaceTime or a phone call. So we did a lot of that through the summer and then through the spring. We tried to incorporate some film work to get better in using film. And that was a lot of what we did with the young people on the team. Obviously, recruiting looked a lot different as well. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of watching film, a lot of streaming live events. So, it was challenging, but we tried to make the best out of it and be as adaptable as possible through the time.
Coach Lottich?
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but I think a lot of teams, coaches in our department and really across the country did similar things. Thank God for technology. We were able to get on Zoom calls. We try to do it weekly and really just keep updated. And like Coach said previously, just try to keep our team cohesion, our culture moving forward. We did have some initiative by some of our guys, which I thought was pretty neat. They challenged each other. For training in our sport, sometimes all you really need is a blacktop and a basketball. And there was different, dribbling drills that they challenged each other with, and they would do it on team text and things like that. And it was all organically driven by them, which was really neat. But for the most part, we tried to stay positive, find ways that we could continue to improve in difficult times. And I thought we did a good job of that. The coaches, we tried to have some film sessions in there to talk over our offense, talk over our defense, but that stuff can get stale pretty quick. But overall, was pleased with how our team came out of it, and I will tell you that we're back on the court now, which is it's been a breath of fresh air. It's been awesome. It makes me really appreciate the job that I have and the young people that I get to coach and the institution that I'm at. So we're excited about moving forward, but we definitely tried to make the best of a bad situation. I thought we did a pretty good job of it.
Coach Fox, you're in a little different situation. There's a traditional spring football season, which you didn't have, and very limited access in the summer. So what did you do with your team during those periods?
Yeah, so the middle of March, there was a lot of uncertainty, just where, when, how everything was going to take place. And so us as a staff, what we wanted to do was a couple things. Is try to be as normal, if you can use that, as normal as we could be in terms of our approach. So we really wanted to emphasize academics, and I tell you what, our academic staff did an unbelievable job. Finished with the highest team GPA, 3.21 spring semester GPA over the last decade. So credit to the guys on the team, but to our academic staff as well here. So unbelievable job with that. But that was number one concern, when guys are leaving campus and how the classes work online. And so we wanted to put a high premium on the academic piece of it. Once we kind of got that figured out, towards the end of March, we went into what we called our spring football. And I know we're not out on the field, but we do get 15 practices in the spring, and that mirrored that on Zoom. So we had 15 Zoom meetings, like a lot of coaches said, with film review and install, just like we would. And again, I think that allowed us to feel the normalcy with our team and the camaraderie, just to get back together as a football team. As May hit, we were kind of working with finals, so that was where the effort was there. But our focus in June then became more on getting the freshmen integrated within our team and starting to build relationships. I know it was on a computer, but the more that we could get those guys building relationships with each other, the more it was going to help us moving forward. During that time too, we started doing a lot more video installs on their own, so that they could kind of watch it at their own time, and we would just video ourselves on Zoom and talk through different scenarios. And so it allowed their schedule to be a little bit more adaptable in terms of our approach in June. And then in July, we really started to pull back a little bit, because they were probably getting a little tired of us. And so just to give them that 4th of July, and then as we were starting to get into school. So just really our approach is trying to keep things, as football is so regimented in terms of just how we do things. So we were trying to keep that schedule as close as we could.
And Coach White, volleyball.
Yeah, so for us, it's just kind of the same thing, and we get into the spring. We were getting to the meat of our spring season, where it's all individual training. And so for us, it was really important, like everyone else down the line here, is just to keep the team cohesion, and making sure the team is staying together, staying focused on our schoolwork, our academics, and all that kind of things. So a lot of Zoom meetings, and then when we got further in, like we had the girls do a couple of video things to help recruit, helping all that kind of stuff, and it kept them involved really a lot. And gym access was tough, just like everybody else here. So making sure that they were getting some kind of workout in. Karen and I were talking about it. It was just most of our kids, it was one of those things, like they've been playing volleyball since they're 12 years old all year round. So we tried to flip them to a positive, where they were finally getting a break, and we were actually really happy with how they came back this fall so far. Really well rested and come back ready to go.
Great, thank you. Just to let everyone know that there is a chat that's open, and if you have a question that you'd like to put to anyone here on the panel, we would be happy to address those as we go along. So please, if anything comes to mind, if there's something that more of an explanation that you'd like from the things that we mentioned, or if there's just a topic that we don't discuss that you'd like to get an answer to, please send it, and those questions will be passed along to us. Okay, the next thing we want to just take a few minutes to talk about is what are the seasons going to look like. So one of the things that we've been doing as athletic directors is we have weekly meetings in both the Missouri Valley Conference and the Pioneer Football League as we talk through the current situation with the virus, the current situation on each one of our campuses, where the NCAA stands as far as competition, what they're looking to do, And from all of that, trying to figure out how we can put forward some meaningful competitive opportunities for all of our student athletes yet in this academic year. So that's been a lot of conversation. So now we're going to let each one of the coaches give you a little sense of where they think we potentially may be in the direction we're going with each one of their sports. And for this, we're going to start on the opposite end. We'll start with Coach Polite, and he can talk about what may be happening with volleyball.
So recently the NCAA just came out, and I think that's January 25th is the first week that they're going to let volleyball start. We're still waiting to hear from our conference when that will be exactly, what that could entail. It could be a 10-week conference schedule. It could be an 8-week conference schedule. So we're still waiting to hear on that. We know it's going to be a little different, but we're just excited to get out and compete, whatever it's going to end up being.
For us, the one thing that's really exciting right now is through the university and our athletic department and the job the healthcare has done. We're right now, we are currently participating in 12-hour weeks, moving to 20-hour weeks, and so we're getting out on the practice field, and it's been really nice to get back to just everyday practice. And it's different than what it looks like. We split our team up into two. They're not out there every day. It's kind of an every other day routine, but it's been awesome to get back out on the field and to practice. In terms of the season, I think that's still up in the air and just how or what, but they have made a proposal to play in the spring with conference games. Just the number of games, is still to be determined. Those games would start end of February or beginning of March, and then run till April 17th is when the FCS playoffs would start.
Yeah, and that's important to note that the conversation so far for both of the fall sports that will be competing in the spring, and actually with 3 of them that would also include soccer, is that the NCAA has indicated that they will host championships in the spring for each one of those sports. We're thrilled that our conferences, so the Missouri Valley Conference and the Pioneer Football League, will get automatic qualifiers. Our champions will be automatic qualifiers for each one of those championships. So there still will be the opportunity, or it looks that way, if the virus cooperates on some level, that there's still an opportunity for both of the fall teams to have spring schedules to compete for NCAA championships, to compete for Missouri Valley Conference championships. So we're excited for that and looking forward to that. A little different note, so our winter sports, so we'll let both Coach Lottich and then Coach Evans talk about the start of basketball and what their upcoming seasons may look like.
So Mary can cover up any loose ends. I think that we're pretty similar, but as it stands right now, this is the first day that we're actually allowed to go to a 12-hour work week. And so previously we've been operating on 8 hours. And so for us, we've been doing 4 on the court, and then they've been doing 4 hours in the weight room for strength and conditioning. Now we're going and transitioning into a 12-hour week. So we're going to practice Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. And so our guys will have 2 or 4 2-hour practices, and then the remaining 4 hours they will be in the weight room or out in the field doing conditioning. October, is it 14th, 13th?
14th.
Yeah. So October 14th, we'll start our 20-hour work week, and with anticipations that we can play our first games November 25th. As far as the schedule, we had previously had a start date of November 5th, and so there were games from that November 5th to that 25th date in there that, we're just trying to talk to those teams to try to solidify a game schedule, but we're working hard on it. So that's where we're at, but again, we are just happy to be back on the court, and looks like we're going to play some games this year, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for the women's team. Same dates. We're transitioning into the 12-hour week as well, and I think it's a nice thing the NCAA did to kind of allow us to get our kids back on the court and not rush them into being thrown into 3-4 hour practices. So I think it's going to be really beneficial for them as far as their health, and maybe they'll start letting us do this a little earlier every year.
Okay, you all talked a little bit about what you're doing for practice, but it would be great if you could talk a little bit more about, since you didn't have this spring and the summer like you normally would, and with the delayed start to your seasons or being pushed all the way back to the spring, what are you doing now? What's different about practices? What do you see will be different about practices as you move now into the opportunity to practice more? And we'll start down here. We'll let Coach Evans start this time. And talk a little bit about how basketball will be a little different.
Yeah, I think we were pretty fortunate. Our athletic administration, I think, worked really hard to allow us to get back in July for some one-on-one instruction, all masked up and under real safety regulations. But for us, I think that really helped my program because we spend the majority of our spring developing players one-on-one. So our spring is spent one coach, one player, one hoop, really working on trying to get those kids better at their individual skills. The only thing I would say that we weren't able to do in the summer that we would have in the spring is not play any one-on-one, which is something we focus a lot in the spring as well. So, I think coming in July and having that time with the players that chose to come back, that felt safe enough to come back, kind of allowed us to get that springtime in July. And then when we transitioned over at the start of school, when everybody was back, we've had now 5 weeks, this as of last week with our players. So I thought that kind of simulated what we normally get in the summer. We were able to get them in some more contact drills, introduce some of our concepts, continue to work on their individual skills, start building their fitness. We broke last week and gave them a recovery week, and now we're starting with the 12-hour segment. So I'm kind of thinking these next 3 weeks are going to kind of act on what our normal August, start of September looks like. We can start kind of building on what we did in the summer, which was in the fall this year, as we go into our 20-hour segment. So I think it's kind of worked out to allow us to have some normalcy, as Landon said, and what we typically do. We're just doing it at different dates. So I think for me, my staff and I have talked a lot about being very careful about where they're at physically, because they did have a long break off. I know they all came back feeling the best they've ever felt physically and mentally, but making sure that we keep that and we don't push them too hard and develop little overuse injuries from having the time away. So that's something we're really working on and having a lot of conversations with them to make sure that we're doing the right things and they're feeling really good as we go into the start of our season.
Yeah, again, pretty similar. A lot of our spring and summer is, we start with just skill development. And, a lot of what we tell young men when we recruit them is, we want to make them the best versions of themselves. And so, a lot of times that's spending individual time with them. And we missed out on that. So being able to get back and do some of that was awesome. It was special. It was fun. I do think, and we were fortunate. A lot of the guys on our team actually had access to some gyms and were able to play in some pickup games and do things like that. So as we've transitioned back into more team practice now, it's kind of getting that type of playing maybe a little bit out of them and focusing more on the team. I think sometimes pickup games can turn into 4 guys standing around watching one guy try to perform, and so, but working that back out of them. And again, with the mindset of, we're going to take a big macro view of this whole season, because I think it's tempting to try to push them to get more in and feel like you're maybe ahead of the curve, but I think that'd be a little bit irresponsible just because the time off that these guys have had. We want them healthy first and foremost.
Okay, and now for Coach Fox and for Coach Blight, so you guys will be in a little different situation because you're going to practice now until finals, the end of the semester, and then we're going to be gone for 2 months, and then you're going to come back and you're going to need to compete right away as soon as you come back. So can you each give us a sense of how you plan on managing that for your student athletes and for your programs?
Yeah, number one, just the opportunity to come back over the last 5 weeks, we definitely had to be mindful, just like the other 2 basketball programs, in terms of where they were at. We had to work up to us putting our pads on starting this week. So we had to take our time. The one thing, and I heard Matt say this, is I think Design's a good program, is we do what we call IDPs, individual developmental plans, that we have with every one of our players, and because they're unique to themselves, and we don't want to hamstring guys just by, hey, this is what one guy does, and we want to compare that. We want to do what, we want to know what they do best. And so we had to pull those out from where they left us in March to where they're at now. And then what we're seeing right now is during this 5-week period that we had, we're kind of getting guys back to where they were. And because like the basketball coaches were saying, it's easy to find a ball in some cement. Well, it ain't easy to find, a football helmet, football pads. So it definitely is a little bit different in our approach. Now, that being said, we are very fortunate to have this time because we do have a young team. We brought in 54 freshmen, and so I think this could be a real positive for us in terms of getting them out there, learning our system, terminology, our verbiage, just how we do things. And so, I can see it as a plus moving into the spring.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Fox said it right away. He's got 54. We only have 2 freshmen coming in. And the best part is normally we jump into it right away, and they just have to get acclimated right away. And so this has been really good, just building a team that we get to work with them this whole fall. And it's the same thing for us. Like I said, we were really happy with the way they came in condition. But it was just about getting touches. It's the same thing. Like, it's hard to get the volleyball touches on the court. They can do a lot of sand volleyball and stuff, but it's a little different. So for us this fall, it's been a lot of individual stuff. The last couple weeks we've done a lot of beach work. Like, we went out to the sand and let them play out there, and it's just about getting touches. So many touches, and because we are going to have that break here in December for it's like 2 months. So really, for us, it's just a lot trying to get as many touches back in, work on their individual skills this fall, so that when we get into the spring, it's just about getting right back into it.
Okay. Now, so we spent some time talking about practices and what the season may look like and some of the changes, but now we're going to get into what I think is the best part of the conversation. We're going to let each one of the coaches talk about how they feel their team is going to look this year. Yes, the competition schedule is going to look a little different, but we're still thrilled with the quality of young people that are here representing the university, that are here to compete. So we're going to give each one of the coaches an opportunity to tell you a little bit about what their team looks like, what they anticipate, what you may see in the coming year or in the coming season as you watch the team. So we're going to change up the order a little bit, and I think we'll start with Coach Fox, and he can talk about what he thinks the football team will look like when they do compete in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited about the guys we have on the football team and where we're at. I do think there's a few positions that are a little bit young. Our offensive line, we ended up bringing in 10 new offensive linemen. So you do win in the trenches, so that's a place where we're going to have to develop those guys quickly and get them to understand what we expect and how to do it. From a defensive perspective, I thought we did take strides last year. And I guess on paper you could say we have 8 returning starters from a year ago. So the one thing that we have found, though, is we found guys that are pushing our upperclassmen, and so that competitiveness is driving guys to be their best selves, and so that's been really good. I think our strength on offense, we have really good receiving core, and that was shown by a couple of all-conference guys, and Ollie Reese and Deuce LaRose. So those guys are doing a tremendous job, and they have some other guys that are backing them up that are really pushing them as well. I just say this, from a defensive perspective, and I know this is just kind of philosophy stuff, not maybe people, but don't give up big plays. On offense, don't turn the ball over, and be really good in the kicking game. And that's how we identify, and that's how we have success. And speaking of kicking game, I think our punter, Ben Neisner, an honorable mention all-conference guy, he's back, so we're excited to have him. We do got to find a kicker. We lost our kicker from a year ago, and so that's a spot that we'll have to find.
Okay, Coach Blight, give us a sense of what we may anticipate seeing on the volleyball court.
So we're really excited with the new kids we have coming in. We have Mallory and Victoria Bullman. They're freshmen setter, new middle, but we also have a bunch of returning kids. We got Riley Cooker, who was Libero of the Year, Peyton McCarthy, she was all conference. Really excited to get back on the court with all of them. Like I said, we just loving all this extra time we're getting to build our team together. And so looking forward to getting to the spring with them and getting to compete with all of them.
Great. And then we're going to turn over here, and so Coach Evans, if you give a sense of what your team looks like and what you anticipate from the Missouri Valley this year.
Well, the Missouri Valley is going to be good, I think. Again, I don't see that changing anytime soon with the teams that are in it and the coaches that are in it. But, I think for me, after watching this team over the last 5 or 6 weeks, I think from a talent perspective, it's probably the most talented team that we've had since I've been here. It's also got a lot of youth. I mean, we have five new players, 4 incoming freshmen. We brought in another walk-on, a local kid. And I think they're all very, very talented, but they have a ton to learn. And they're going to be anchored, I think, by a really good returning class. Watching, 9 of our 14 kids coming back are returners. We've got 2 fifth-year kids in Caitlin Morrison and Marley Prophet that have committed to come back in their 5th year. Marley's going to give it a go with no ACL this year and see what she can do for us. And, it's just a hard-nosed, tough kid that if anyone else even tries to complain on this team about not feeling well, we can be like, Marley's doing it without an ACL. What are you doing? So having that leadership, I think, is going to be huge. Having Shea Frederick back for a 3rd year, starting point guard for us for 2.5 over 3 years, that makes you feel good as a coach to have that person that can really run your team and lead things. And I'm really excited about having Carrie Weinman back. She was a great defensive player. I thought she started coming into her own offensively towards the end of last year. Having her back as a junior is really, really exciting. And then, honestly, I think we had 2 kids coming off the bench last year in Ella Ellenson and Grace White that could have easily been starters. So, we lost 2 of our 5 starters, but I think we've got some pieces that can plug in there. And I'm really excited to see what this team can do this year.
Coach Lottich?
I think right now we're really excited about where we're at. We're very athletic. I think we're very versatile in a lot of ways. I mean, I can highlight a lot of our seniors because I think that they've, done it. Malik McMillan obviously took huge jumps for us, and talking around the league, his ability at his size to shoot the ball the way that he does poses so many problems. Aaron Gordon, some people might not know, he played most of the year last year, hurt, had some knee issues. He looks great, looks healthy, shooting the ball fantastic. And then Zion Morgan, didn't play a ton for us, was more of a reserve role. The one thing that young man never did was complain, and he's taken this offseason and really worked hard, and he's got a lot of coaches advocating him in a lot of ways, so we expect some good things from him. And then Nick Robinson's back healthy, been dealing with a little bit of a back issue last year. Nick probably didn't have the year that he wanted to last year, but he's had a lot of success in college basketball, and so we're excited to get him back. And then you look at Saki, feels like he's been here forever, but he's just now starting his junior year. I think he's taken a jump. And then, really our sophomore class, we've got, Ben and Donovan. I think they're led by those guys. I mean, by the end of the year, I thought Donovan was the hardest guy for me to take out of the lineup, just because he was so versatile. The things that he was doing offensively and defensively. I mean, he made huge strides, and he's put on about 15, 20 pounds. I mean, he's really, really playing well. And then Ben Cricky was our most efficient offensive player last year in about 18 minutes. So he's been playing great as well. And then we really like the freshmen that we've added. So again, I like the versatility. Practice can have a lot of competition. I think we're pretty deep. Could maybe even go 10, 11 guys and really turn up the pressure defensively. So we're excited.
Great. One of the things that you haven't heard the basketball coaches particularly talk about, obviously the spring sport coaches haven't talked about, but was our schedule. So I know there's probably some people wondering what the basketball schedules will look like, and the reason we haven't mentioned it is because we honestly don't know yet. The Missouri Valley Conference schedules will be coming out in the next day or two, so we do know what those games will look like, and both the men and the women will start Missouri Valley Conference play at the end of December, beginning of January. But we don't know what the non-conference schedule will look like yet because of the NCAA's announcement just in the last week of when we could start. So the non-conference piece is still in flux. We're working on putting those together, and we hope to be able to announce those soon. The other thing that I'm sure people are wondering is, will we be able to have fans? Will there be anybody in the crowd? And right now, we are still working under the guidelines from the state of Indiana and Porter County. And right now, in the state of Indiana, we'd be limited to 250 people on an indoor event. And Porter County actually has a lower limit than that. So that's a conversation that's ongoing. We don't have an answer to that right yet. but we hope to have that worked out, more information that we'll be able to share here in the coming month, as far as will there be spectators at the home events. If nothing else, one thing I can assure you is everything will be streamed on ESPN Plus or ESPN3, or will be actually broadcast on television. So you will be able to watch the games in some manner. What we don't know yet is will you be able to actually watch them live, and as soon as we have an answer to that, we will get that information out to everyone. So I'm going to check with Michael to see if we had any questions come in. Other than that, whether there's going to be, I just answered all of them, so that's great. So we want to thank you for joining us. It's obviously an unusual time with COVID, and it's obviously it's everyone's first ever virtual homecoming. We do want to thank you all for joining us today. We do want to thank you for your continued support of the university. I can assure you that the Valpo experience is real, and it is happening here for all of our students, even amongst the COVID virus. So there's a lot of good things happening on campus. We're thrilled to have the students here. We're thrilled to have in-person classes. A lot of work has gone into this semester by a lot of people to make sure that we could provide the Valpo experience. So for all of you that are alumni, your institution is here. It's doing well. The Valpo experience is live and well. For all of you that help support with your financial gifts, thank you. It is making a difference. I would encourage you, there's lots of other virtual homecoming events yet this week. Go online. I would encourage you to participate as much as you can. We're thrilled to have you with us here virtually. And believe me, we look forward to seeing all of you in person here as soon as we're able. And we look very much forward to having an in-person homecoming next year. So for all of us here, for all of the coaches, thank you so much for joining us, and go Valpo!